Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unfinished Business. I am Rogette Harris, the host, and I have two special guests with me this evening. We have Goodman, executive board member of the Pennsylvania State Party, and Hagir Elsheikh, activist in this area. And she also has her own show, which she interviews candidates and whatnot. So I want to thank you both for joining me this evening. How are you both?
Thanks for having us. I'm so excited to be here. Second time.
So, as you both know, we are 6 days away from the election. So, I would like to talk about not only the election, what your predictions are, but this has been a very unpredictable year. As you know, today, I just read a half hour ago, the U.S. Supreme Court has decided to not hear the case that the Pennsylvania Republican Party wanted them to rehear regarding the 3-day allowing the ballots to be counted if they come in within 3 days. But Justice Alito did leave the door open for them possibly to throw those ballots out after the count. And then our new Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, actually recused herself from that because she wasn't able to look at the paperwork. Even though we knew that we couldn't hold back her nomination, I was hoping she might be more of an independent thinker. And at least in this case, I do think she did the right thing. What do you both think?
Well, if I could start, I think first we have to give credit where credit is due. I know a lot of people were against her nomination. I was too. I am a lot of her previous history I am not a fan of and what she's ruled on. But I think that's a very encouraging sign of character for her to recuse herself from that specific case. To your first point, Rogette, when it comes to predictions, being out on the ground every day, not only are Democrats united, but people who are against Islamophobia, homophobia, people who are against spewing the fans of racist rhetoric in this country and bringing this country down the wrong path are unified. And people are excited. And I would actually argue that not only people are excited to get out and vote for Joe Biden, but people are really excited to get out and vote for our down ballot candidates as well. And, the chair knows, Hagir, you've been interviewing almost all of them. We have some incredible down ballot candidates that are really stirring up excitement, not just in this district, but across the Commonwealth. So my predictions is it's going to be a huge win for not just Democrats on election night or a few days after election night, but for all of America, because we're going down the wrong path.
Well, Hagir, let me ask you, because I'm not one to say who is or who's not going to win.
Yeah.
I've learned my lesson from that. When I say someone is going to win, they don't. When I say someone's not going to win, they do. So I'm definitely not going to do it on camera.
Yeah.
But I do have some numbers here. Over 3 million Pennsylvanians have already voted early.
Yeah.
And almost 2 million of those ballots, I'm looking at these numbers right now from the Pennsylvania Department of State, have been returned.
Yeah.
And 69, so you might as well say 70% of those ballots returned have been returned by Democrats.
Yeah.
Here in Dauphin County, the return rate so far is at 68%. So we do know that people are voting in higher numbers than they did 4 years ago. So is that encouraging to voters?
Especially the young voters. We've seen large numbers, and I am excited. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having both of us here. It's a pleasure to be with both of you. If you allow me to go to Amy, I am not like you, Cole. I'm sorry, you're optimistic, both of you. She's a nut job. I don't care what she just did, but she's going to take us back way before 100 years. So and for them to actually nominate her 7 days before the election, when million, like you said, million of people that already voted, this is a threat to the democracy. And for her to accept that, it shows me lack of character, or show me her character. So I am not happy. I mean, what she just did, it might sound as something noble to do, but the noble thing to do is to say, I am not going to accept this nomination now because million American already voted. Let's just wait until after November 3rd. That being said, I am hopeful, like you call, but there is silent um, Trump supporter here in Pennsylvania, and we cannot deny that. And like you, Rajat, I don't want to be hopeful because I was 100% sure that Hillary
Yes.
won. And she actually won by 3 million popular votes. The Electoral College is the problem, and it is still exists. The other concern that I have is the Republican throwing a fit. Trump is going to throw a fit, no question.
Hmm.
Um, Now having 7 out of the 9 judges as conservative Republicans, they have the option to say after November 3rd and after the Democrat win, they can find an excuse. He's going to come out and say some of the ballot, like the Republican votes, were throwing in a river in the trash. He's going to find excuses. But you and I and Cold know that the turnout for Democrat this year is amazing, and I'm just
Yes.
proud of everyone.
Well,
So
do you think this is an election issue, though? Because whether we like it or not, Trump has shaped the courts for at least a generation.
yeah.
That's really part of his legacy. He supported 3 U.S. Supreme Court justices, and that's before we get to the what 200 to 300 federal judges that he has appointed.
Do you
But
know that we can impeach? They can be impeached. If you guys all don't know who are listening to us right now, just remember after November 3rd, we have a choice. Don't let this distract you or make you feel discouraged. You can impeach the Supreme Court. And I researched that, and it's actually one of our rights. So let's do it.
well, but it's in the courage. As you know, Cole, they tried to impeach the president, and the same Republicans who talked about Trump in the past when they were running against him
Mhm.
and said pretty much the same things everyone's saying now. You know, they just follow along. You know,
Yeah.
it's a shame that in politics we're supposed to elect leaders, but we have a lot of followers
Yeah.
in the Congress and in the Senate who aren't willing to stand up to their own party because all they think about is self-interest. So is the courage there?
I think that the courage is lacking in both parties. I think that long gone is the courage of the current Republican Party. And actually, I may be in a minority here, but for Republicans who just jumped on this anti-Trump train and just realizing how much of an existential threat he is, I don't have really any sympathy for. But I also think that there's a lack of courage in the Democratic Party as well. And I see it time after time again.
Mhm.
And I think that we're going to see more courageous leaders, more leaders who are going to have the backbone and take the stand of what's doing something right, when a lot of our elected leadership wants to pass the torch on to the next generation. That's when I think we're going to start seeing these generational changes, these structural and immense societal changes that we need to make in this country. So it's on both sides. Both sides, I think, have really lacked the courage. I see you giggling at me.
Well, no,
What did I say?
I agree with that. It's just I don't know if I misunderstood you, but it sounded like you said that the current electeds are going to pass the torch. I disagree with you there. We're going to have to take
No.
it.
That's
No one's
not what I.
passing anything.
That's
Okay,
not what I said.
that's why I was. That's why I was
No,
chuckling.
no.
We
That's
don't wait for anyone to pass anything.
No.
We take
right.
what is right.
But
Yes.
but my point was, and I apologize if I didn't say it clearly, is that needs to be done.
Okay.
Wasn't saying that is going to happen, but that really
Okay.
needs to be done, not just in the Commonwealth, but nationally.
Yeah.
Well, of course. I mean, the average age, I believe, is it late 60s or early 70s
Yeah.
in Congress. A lot of them have been there longer than we've all been on this earth.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
both parties.
Yeah,
So
amen.
an issue. But kind of going back to what you were saying, Hagir, look what Danae's saying, that she believes the Democrats will win, but she also thinks the Republicans will steal the election.
Mm.
And then we are going back to the court situation, because we're not going to know the results for a few days afterwards.
Mhm.
And if the results aren't what Donald Trump wants, I do think he probably already has the lawsuits
Ready.
already
Yeah.
ready to
Yeah.
go in certain key states, of course. And Pennsylvania is definitely one of them.
But let me say that too. Is it Dana?
Danae.
Danae. I'm not like someone who look at the glass half empty, but I've been feeling this way the past 4 years. I
Mm.
am more hopeful now. I'm positive, seeing so many young people. And if you followed, and I'm sure you've seen the candidates and you interviewed them as well, Rajat, but we have amazing candidate in our ballot this year. Um, they are going, and they have large support. They won, and they won the primary. So there is a large amount of people who are waking up and feeling we have to do something. So
Mm.
even if they try to steal the election, I know it's not going to go easy. So I'm not talking about civil unrest. I'm talking about people fighting actually for their rights. Just let me tell you, my 13 years old said to me yesterday, they're very active, both of them, the 19 and the 13. But the 13 said they should change the voting age to the young generation. She said, "You guys did your part already. I'm not saying don't vote, but she said this is supposed to be our time." And she's 13, you know. And I had held conversation with her friends, 13 years old and 14 years old. And they are beyond your, like you feel hopeful, and you feel like okay, there is a future out there.
But and again, I'm bringing up some of the numbers. I'm looking at the numbers again from the Department of State, and these are only the mail ballots. So I want to be clear with that. But the highest percentage of return ballots are from those 66 and up at 75%, and it gets lower the younger you get. Age 18 to 24, the return rate is only 46%. So I agree with you that the younger, the millennials and younger, it's their time to come forward. But and Cole, you've heard me say this too. What I like about the protests is that they bring awareness to an issue, but it's the ballot box where the real change takes place.
Mhm.
And sometimes I don't feel as though we make that clear to people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there, because once people get elected, we have to keep them accountable for what they say when they are campaigning. I know I'm concerned that Pennsylvania got rid of their straight party voting.
Yeah.
So as a county chair, I've been educating people on that. You got to make sure you vote for individual office.
Yeah.
It's no good to have Joe Biden as president, but Mitch McConnell still as the Senate Majority Leader.
Yeah.
We have Governor Tom Wolf, but look at the legislature he's dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
They're filing lawsuits and trying to overturn his vetoes and whatnot every turn.
Mm.
So we have to get all of our candidates elected.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we get that message across, especially with COVID? Because we can't do a lot of the tradition. We can't talk to people one-on-one like we used to.
Can I answer that before you call? Because
Mhm.
I'm
Absolutely.
directing it to you. I am proud of you, first of all, to say the least, of everything that you do. So to answer your question, Rajat, people like Call who are out there protesting. I know I've done few march and protest, and I was a woman march, but I cannot do all of them. Call is there every day. You open the Facebook, open any news station, you will find them in the front line. So people respect you, and you are a leader, and you're a good leader. So use that, and you are using it. So to answer your question, someone like Call, someone who is outside with the protesters, make sure when you speak to them, and I know you do that, but keep hammering, because someone is new every time attending and listening to you, and they can hear you. Just encourage them, because when they hear you saying that, you know what, we're out here protesting, this is very important, but we cannot fight for our right, the right way, if we don't vote. A lot of people did not register. To answer also your question, Rajat, about the
I know.
young people, a lot of people, I was mad at few of my friends, and I actually told them, you know, I'm done. And I'm cutting people out of my life, and I'm not saying, you know, you do that. I'm not like encouraging people to do that, but I think at this point of our life, this is not an election to me. This is matter of death. You know, my kid's future, my future, my daughter, the 19 years old who's driving her car, me feeling every night if she's going to come home safe, or if she's safe in college, you know. So if you don't, if anyone that I know don't feel the same way I do, that this is an urgent issue. This is not a matter of election, or I wouldn't care as much if that was a decent president running against Joe Biden. Then I would know our rights. He, at least he will be held accountable. But for people to allow Trump to win again by either voting for him or not voting, you are targeting me personally, and I have something personal against you. So
But
there,
but you know, part of the problem is though, and I can't speak for everyone, of course, but I've spoke to some individuals, and the reason why they don't vote is because their lives don't change, regardless of who's in these positions. You have uh, Donald Trump, who is being very frank. He just doesn't care.
Mhm.
He's very honest with that. He just
Yeah.
doesn't care. But then you have some candidates, and some of these are Democratic candidates. They're out there marching as well with Black Lives Matter. But
Yeah.
ask them what their policies are for
Mhm.
the minority communities. What are their policies to help the wage disparities, the employment disparities, the healthcare disparities, even criminal justice reform? And we have nothing and are just talking points. So, you know, we have two sides of that coin. And again, I'm speaking in generalities here, but, you know, that's why I said in the very beginning is we have to hold our candidates and our elected officials accountable because people are tired of the rhetoric. They want to start seeing some action. And I'm saying that as a Democratic Party chair. I see this on both sides, but we have to start showing people some results.
Yeah, and if I could jump in here, I want to bring that point you just said, Rajat, locally. We have county government in Dauphin County that has been elected
Yes.
decade after decade after decade, and actually they run every 4 years on, oh, Dauphin County is just fine, everything's just fine. When there are people
No
that are
tax increase.
no tax increase, but we have abandoned properties that are falling on other people's properties.
Yeah.
We have
Right.
people who are out on the streets, living on Second Street every single day, who are homeless. What are we doing about that? Our kids and youth program in Dauphin County is an absolute disaster. So just to your point, people, that point absolutely has to be made nationally, but we need to start making that point locally too. Why do we keep electing people year after year that don't produce any results to make everyone's life better in Dauphin County? So, and Hagir, you brought up a wonderful point. I think one thing that was missing in many of the Black Lives Matter protests, not all, but many, was the huge push for civic engagement and voter education. And since I think the BLM movement is not a movement, it's a true movement.
Mhm.
Going forward, we have to keep pushing that. Even myself, sometimes I forget, and I have to keep telling myself, register people to vote. There are always new people that are coming. We got to start really getting results instead of, as Rogette, you said, just being about the rhetoric, you know?
And that's what I admire so much about the 1960s movement. Unfortunately, we're dealing with the same problems our
Yeah.
parents have been dealing with, our grandparents have been dealing with, plus more
Yeah.
on top of them.
Right.
But what I admire about the 1960s is while they were in the streets protesting, they were in the White House making sure that Lyndon B.
Yep.
Johnson was getting that legislation together. And that's the piece that we are missing today in 2020, I believe. You kind of have two sides. You have the policy side, and I admit I'm more on the policy side. Love, 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 love policy. As anyone who knows me knows that.
Mhm.
But you need the activists as well to bring that attention. but the two sides, we have to work together.
Right.
And that's something that we haven't done. And I
I
hope
am big
that
with
we did enough.
education and raising awareness and trying to talk to people because, I've been on the street my whole life. I was an activist in Sudan, a torture survivor, and we basically my first 19 years of my life since I was a baby, we're out fighting a corrupt government. So, I know that will lead us somewhere, but and it's very important to be out, but the minds, the people who are using it against, like now, Trump is using, for example, I know you're going to talk later about the shooting in Philly, but the
Right.
timing, to me, that is like the timing is not a coincidence. Okay,
Right.
having people, and we will talk and
Well, let's start
about that
talking
later.
about it now. You brought it up. Let's talk about that now.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is the mind. If we don't focus on the mentality of our community, they're
Right.
going to look at us as looters, rioters. Like every protest that we went to, call it was peaceful,
Mm.
and there is instigators. People don't understand, but they just see what the media or the clip that was showing to them in Fox News or just from someone conservative who wanted to show. If I stood by long enough, I'm gonna get that video that I'm looking for. You hear me? So if I want to show the protest or the Black Lives Matter as a violent, I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna send some instigator to throw something. And once
Right.
the police get that first hit, they're gonna fight back. And initially, people are gonna fight them. So you don't know who started it, but you're gonna see that clip and look at the protester and say those are people who are not going to speak about their rights, and they're protesting peacefully, and they're looking for a civil protest. There are rioters, there are violent people, and they're gonna use that. So the only way to prevent that from happening, or at least to uh, let people understand, you have to explain to them, you have to educate them and make sure that they are at the same level as you. They don't have to necessarily go out and protest, but at least they will look and say, you know what, they're practicing their rights, and I'm not going to worry about those burning cars because I don't know how this started. About the
But how do you view that though? Because I know I've spoken to some individuals who are going to be voting for Trump. They're Trumpsters. They vote for him the first time, second time, and
yeah.
they believe him where he thinks, where they think that all of the protesters are looters, that they're not peaceful,
Mhm.
that they are part of the problem. I don't want to say that they deny racism, but
Mhm.
they do think it's sort of overblown a bit. That the police are there to protect.
Yeah.
So there are people who believe what he's saying about the law and order. So how do you get through to an individual like that?
Conversation, and trust me, so many of them that you can't get to because mentally they're blocked, and I'm not being mean. But
Right.
try to get to the undecided ones. Try to get to the one that like I had a conversation with a good friend of mine who I was shocked. He's an older guy, 76 years old.
Mhm.
I was shocked because he told me he's very open-minded. I know he's conservative, but I did not think he voted for Trump in 2016. He came out, he actually called me himself, and he said, I know you're going to get shocked to hear this. I voted for him. I'm an elderly white man. 80% of what he said made sense to me at that time. And
Okay.
he said, this time around, he said, I'm still conservative Republican. I voted Republican all the way except for Biden. And he said, I wanted to call you and let you know that, I voted Biden this year because I cannot take his lies. He said, most of the people that voted for Trump, they think that someone might not be presidential material, but once they get in the office, they at least going to follow directions. They're going to be good. They're going to change. So most of them voted for him thinking that he's going to change. But 4 years and we see nothing good. We've seen bad things, but those are a small amount of people who you can really talk to, and those are not my target. Because if the value and the ethics is not a cut for you, seeing the picture of him, seeing him degrading a handicapped person or
Right.
degrading women, that should have been it for every normal human being. But if you still support him up to this point and you're not open for conversation, you're not going to be. Those are not my target audience. I'm talking about the undecided ones. I'm talking about the young ones, the ones that who are raised by those conservative, let's call them not jobs, because there are not jobs. They have kids, and some of them you can actually talk to their kids and talk some senses to them. We have to work with our curriculums, where our educators, we have to. And I know you guys said earlier that the elected officials we have, they're not doing their job, but this is not only their fault, this is our fault too, because I know I wasn't there knocking on the door, writing letters and telling them, hey, listen, I know I've contacted few people about, I work with the Capital Coalition of Homelessness, and we didn't get anywhere. I give suggestion about places. I even offered to put money down to help build places so at least they can come and crash, like have like one of those empty lots, and you know what I'm talking about, calls, and just build that area, put beds, just let them know that they can go and sleep. They told me we can't do this because it's uh, something had to do with legality. I am not familiar with. I was discussing the human part of it. But anyways, I know I talked a lot. But my point is focus on the group that you can make change with, that you can actually uh, do something. Don't worry about the ones who are not jobs. I'm just going to say it.
Well, Cole, do you think there are a lot of undecided voters? I actually think, at least for the presidential race, that people's minds are pretty much made up.
So, what that's exactly, at least from what I've experienced from the presidential race, I don't think at this point there are very many undecided voters. I think people know how they're going to vote. Now, for our down ballot candidates, for
Right.
example, the race that I get asked about the most is Eugene De Pasquale versus Scott Perry, and how about each of those candidates and what they stand for and such. So, like, I think for the down ballot races, there are definitely undecideds. Now, just if I could rewind to just quickly our previous subject, there are always going to be people who think all Black Lives Matter is looting, tearing up streets, and being violent. There's nothing you can say to them. You literally could have a whole protest, peaceful protest on video, and they will find something to say that, oh, there were, someone tripped and, there was violence there. But I saw a study that came out that said that actually like 98.5% of all the protests that did occur as an onset to the George Floyd murder were peaceful in this country. So, I mean, we're just in a time where people are completely comfortable with arguing with fact. And I think that is because who we see at the top of our leadership in this country. And one thing he has done is take a movement that is for uplifting a marginalized demographic and race in this country and make it completely into something evil because of the actions of a 1% few. And that's a shame. And that's what I think Joe Biden's talking about when he says we need to restore the soul of the country. Biden wasn't my first choice. And you know that, Rogette, he wasn't my first choice in the primary, but he's definitely my last choice. And I really hear what he says when we need to restore the soul of this nation. And then when we do that, we need to progress this nation too. It's not just restoring what the status quo was. We need to move the nation forward.
Right. But restoring involves, though, talking to each other, trying to understand each other. I know when I was in my car accident last year and I had both my ankles broken, some of the people who helped me the most are actually people who like Donald Trump and who don't agree with the Black Lives Matter movement. but yet I'm a Black woman. I was injured, and they were right there when I needed them. So, and maybe that's my personality, but I like to talk to people to try to understand what is it about him. And a lot of them admit that they don't necessarily agree with his methods, his mouth, basically. Let's be honest. If he kept his mouth shut most of the time, when you look at the judges he's appointed and some of his policies, I do think some people, a group of the segment, would be more happy with him. It's his rhetoric, like you said, he's very divisive. His wording, he appeals to the ugliness of human nature versus the parts that bring us all together. That's why you have Republicans like former Governor Tom Ridge openly saying, I think Mitt Romney said too, that he openly did not vote for him. So you have Republicans saying that as well. But I think we need to understand to a point, and some people you're never going to get to. I understand that. But I do think we need to understand, and it's not just wanting to restore it, but again, it's those policies. When we talk about Philadelphia, the recent incident where that young man was killed by yet another police officer, we know that he had mental illness. It was both Democratic and Republican administrations that closed down all the mental hospitals in this state and reduced the funding for mental health. That was a bipartisan effort. It was a horrible thing to do because especially with COVID now, people are getting depressed. There's a lot of mental illness going on, but people don't have access to, again, quality health care to be serviced and to heal and be well. So, these are issues that we shouldn't divide based on political party. We should be coming together to come up with solutions to get people the help that they need.
But
that's my view.
Going to happen if we have a leader who is openly advocating for division. And Cole, you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say that the point with Mitt Romney, though, is you can come out and say, and this goes back to your point when we started off the show, Rogette, of backbone. You can come out and say you didn't vote for Donald Trump, but you're voting for his legislation in the Senate. So it's like that people being enamored with a lot of these Republicans saying, oh, I didn't walk into my private voting booth and vote for Donald Trump, but when I get up on the national stage, I'm going to vote for legislation that is going to literally further marginalize LGBTQ plus community, Black people in this country. You vote for legislation like that. Honestly, I don't care if you didn't vote for him. When it came to shove, you did not stand up for what was right, but you want to take the easy way out and say, "Oh, I'm not voting for him this time around."
I disagree.
But the problem,
I disagree with you with this. I will take anyone who can see that Donald Trump. I know the Republican doesn't have. That's why we have two parties. They don't hold the same value. They think, same-sex marriage is a problem. They think abortion is supposed to be forbidden. And those people, like Ted Cruz, his dad, he has a radio show or something every Sunday. He's a preacher. And he's openly talking about killing anyone who has a different sex. LGBTQ supposed to be killed. I'm not sure if you heard them. I don't listen to him, but it comes across my feed. But Republicans have different views than us. There is a line between Republican and craziness, which is Trump. I mean, I disagree with them. I don't mind, discussing with them and them having a different opinion. But Mitt Romney or anyone who said, you know what, this is even lower than the low for me. I'm not voting for Trump. I'll take them. I'll take that.
See, I don't consider Trump a Republican. To be honest, he's not a Republican to me. I don't know exactly what he is.
He's a Trumpist. He's a Trumpist.
It's a shame that, again, people are just blindly following him within the Republican Party because he did change at least the perception. It's going to take a while for them, once he's out of office, for them to get their reputation back. But, there's been situations on the other side, and this is why some people are trying to get a third party, which we're not going to get for constitutional reasons, of course. But, we see that in the Democrat Party, too, where people blindly follow leadership. And if you don't do what you're told, you lose your staff. People, they run a primary opponent against you. You know, politics is ugly on
Yeah.
both sides, and that's another reason why people don't vote. But let's talk a little bit about Pennsylvania as a whole. Um, you know, we're 9 seats away. Well, the Democrat Party is 9 seats away from taking the House, 5 seats away of taking the state Senate. We have redistricting next year. So, regardless of who wins this year, they're all going to be running in new districts in 2022. Congress is very important because right now we have a split delegation, 9 Republicans,
Mhm.
9 Democrats. And depending on what happens in the presidential race, Congress might have to have a vote on who our next president is.
Yeah.
So it's important for the Democrat Party, at least, to flip some of those seats, and frankly, for the Republican Party, too, as far with that. Now, we don't have a U.S. Senate race up this year, but I've said to pretty much anyone who listened to me that to me, taking control of the Senate as a Democrat is just as important as Joe Biden winning the presidency.
Yeah.
That's essential for me. And the fact that we can win in states like Arizona, um, even some Senate seats in Georgia is astonishing to me. Look how Jamie Harrison's doing in South Carolina. I mean, this is a personal victory for me if we can take out Lindsey Graham because he's been such a hypocrite
Oh,
the past 4 years. I
Yeah.
mean, I would
Yeah.
just love to take him out. But you know, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake, and I do think this year voters are getting it because turnout is already over half of what it was 4 years ago. So that's exciting. But we can't forget turnout is also higher on the other side.
And there is the silent voters or
Correct.
supporter that did not fill any, anything yet.
Yeah, Rajat, I completely agree. If in heartbreak we were to lose this election, the Senate is, I know, I know, but the Senate is just as important. And I'm actually feeling very good looking at some of these Senate races. Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado, Mark Kelly in Arizona, even Sarah Gideon against Susan Collins in Maine. I think we have a real momentum to take back the Senate. And people tend to forget that when there's a national election, that these Senate elections are just as important as national elections. And it will be equally as important when we do have our Senate election in 2022 in Pennsylvania. So even if the Democrats do take back the Senate, we can't just sit back and be like, oh, we're done. You know, we're going to have to keep our foot on the gas, pedal to the metal in making sure we take as many seats in the Senate as possible.
And we can't forget, too, you know, unfortunately, Republican takes the courts a little bit more seriously than Democrats do.
Yeah.
Voters indirectly choose the judges based on who they vote into office.
Yeah.
Think of next year. You know, we have up to 6 judicial seats open in Pennsylvania, from the Supreme Court, Pennsylvania Supreme Court, down to a county judgeship here in Dauphin County. So, you know, Hagir, how do we get people to realize the importance of these courts? We need to care about judges even when we're not in front of one.
Yeah.
By then it's too late.
To do what you're doing now and what I do and what is Cole is doing. And Cole is doing 2 important things. He's out, and I think he's more closer to the public than you and I, because he's out there. And if we can all go out and protest and talk. So Cole, you have that ability to talk to people. When you talk and when you discuss human rights and all that, make sure you tell people that it is important, and not just important, it's more important than voting the president, to vote for your, and I say that on my show a lot, this is the foundation. Think about it as a house, and your state representative, your senates, this is like the building foundation, and until you get to the top, to your president, you need to do that. Talk to them about the judges, things, even the school boards. We don't even think about that. I am guilty of that myself. This June I've been doing my show, and just to bring all the candidate, like state representative, all of that, so people can know their names. But I remember my very first time voting um, Clinton. Uh, I didn't even know who was my elected official. I just knew the president, and it was so easy because you hit the McGrath. It was one straight ticket. It would select everyone for you. This time is different, and we do need to know. And it doesn't have to be just because we have to select. We need to know who is running, who is going to do a good job, and we just need to keep educating. Rogette, you're doing an amazing job. Call, you have your show, and you also out on the street, so you have the, double whammy.
And if I may, Rajat, quickly, I want to lift both of you up as two very strong leaders in our community. Rajat, with you with unfinished business, educating not just Democrats, but like people of all parties of what our candidates stand for. It's just so important, especially during this time of COVID. And Hagir, with your show, you have interviewed some candidates that I'm on state committee and I didn't even know were running, and you were able to educate me, and I was able to shoot a few bucks their way. That is so important. I just want to thank you both for doing what you do and being the leader of our party, and you in the past few years becoming so civically engaged and trying to get everyone together. So I just wanted to uplift you two, because you probably don't hear it because you guys are always on the move and you're always doing it, but you guys are doing a wonderful job as well.
But I field most of the phone calls from Dauphin County from voters, and a lot of people are unsure on how to vote. I see a question someone has about the post office, and I do want to let people know, if you did not receive your ballot yet, you have two options. As long as you already applied for your application, you can go to if you're in Dauphin County or any county, you can go to your county elections office. Here in Dauphin County, it's 2 South 2nd Street in the city of Harrisburg. They will actually void your ballot and give you a new ballot to vote right then and there, or you can wait until election day and go to the polls, but you will have to vote by provisional ballot. So those are the two options you have if you have not received your ballot yet, because the mail is a little slow. I am concerned about the administrative side of things when it comes to voting. Because one thing Donald Trump says is we all want to win. And with that, I have to agree. But we're not going to win if we don't get our voters to the polling places or their ballots to where they need to go. And, that is a concern, because I get phone calls every day from people who have not received their ballots, or they missed the deadline to do a mail-in ballot, and they're elder, they're disabled, they don't have a ride to the poll. So, those are all things that everyone has to work on to make sure that they get to the poll, because we all have our issues. We all have the reasons that we vote. But the point is actually getting to vote. Or else all this is
go to votespa.com, votes with an S, pa.com. You can check your registration status. You can actually track your ballot. It's up there on the top. You just put your name, and it will show you if they received it and if it's recorded. If it didn't show, then, like Rogette said, you have to go. There is no time.
Also, if you change your mind and want to vote in person and you did receive your ballot, you can take that. You have to take the entire ballot to the polling location with you, and you turn it in, and then they will let you vote in person. So that's another option as well. We have a question here about the county committee, so I'll just answer it very quickly. About underwriting mass communications or TV spots in the future, highlighting the voting rights of convicted felons or misdemeanors in Dauphin County. TV spots, probably not. We are a volunteer organization, so we have to raise all of our money. However, Brandon, you are welcome to give us a donation towards that effort and work with us on that. I will say, though, that we do mailings. To answer your question, we do mailings, we do digital ads, and we have done radio spots. Now, we have not done anything specifically on convicted felons, but that is something that I'm open to in the future. that we can definitely discuss.
Definitely
But
good idea.
TV spots would definitely be out. Now, if the candidates are willing to work with us and we can split the costs, then that is something that we could do. But we could not underwrite that on our own. So I
I
just wanted
think
to
we
answer
should
that
have
very
some
quickly.
kind of laws or regulation to force all the TV channels. And I don't mean force. I just, for the lack of the better word, to have them do this kind of education, especially around the election time, for free. I mean, come on now.
I know in the past they used to do nonpartisan voting, like little PSA commercial type things. So maybe that's something we can approach as long as it's not Democratic specific, of course. Maybe that's something they would do in the future. Because I know in the past that they did. So one of the candidates should have. Yes, I agree with that, Danae. But she was saying as far as helping with the
Yeah.
funding of that. um, but when we talk about this year's elections, we didn't really talk about. Well, Cole, you gave your predictions. You do think Biden is going to win Pennsylvania, correct? Or was your prediction for the presidency?
Close. It's going to be close. I think Biden will win Pennsylvania, but it will be very close. And I think Biden will win the election. In our district, I think a lot of our state rep candidates are going to do very well. And I'm going to say it right now. I think Eugene DePasquale is going to beat Scott Perry. And thank God. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And I also think that George Scott is very, very much in the running against Senator DeSanto, and there's a lot of excitement around his candidacy too. So I think Democrats are going to do very well. We are kidding ourselves if we say that Republicans and the Trump campaign are not going to put up a fight, because they are. And it's going to be a dogfight, and it is going to be very close, and some of these elections are going to be very close. But I think that we really will pull it off, and I have hope, and I'm very thankful that we have a county committee and Democrats being united in taking on this administration.
I think
I
the
would do.
women here in Pennsylvania are going to actually change, or they will be the reason for Biden to win. We have
Yeah.
you're both in Pennsylvania women for Biden group. I mean, it's a large group, and I'm not saying they all. Some of them might just be there to observe, but I think women and young voters are going to make the difference, or just at least bring it closer. My only concern, and I'm like you, Rogette, I don't like to say it out loud. I don't. But my only concern is that we have here in Pennsylvania, especially, we have a lot of people who are just going to vote because they think, and I heard this from so many of them, that the Democrat are um, far left. They
Right.
are, they have this idea. They're not even trying to research it. So if they vote, they will just vote out of fear. And this is a weapon that all dictators use, fear and misinformation throwing out there. So we still, I don't want us to feel as we won. I want you to feel like we're not going to win. And I need you to fight like your life depending on it. We need to fight like we have a huge. Hillary was beating him on the poll for like what, nine points.
Correct.
And so don't rest. Like Cole said, foot on the pedal
Yeah.
until November 3rd.
Well, if we think back 4 years ago, it was actually women in that like 50 to 60 age group, specifically white women actually, that won the election for Trump. So it will be interesting to see what that demographic does this year
Another
regarding
another
Biden.
issue that we need to educate people about, Eurojet and call that Pennsylvania, and I don't know why we do that. They made make your status inactive every year. I just
Yes.
learned that. I did not know that before until I was helping a friend to register her mom, and her status was inactive. So if your status is saying inactive, you still can vote in person.
Mm.
But if it says cancel, then that's a problem. And I think this is the way, uh, this is the way it's to discourage people. Voter suppression is real.
Yeah.
Oh, big time. That's where all these lawsuits about trying to get people's signatures knocked off. If the mail is late, not counting the votes, voter suppression is, it just looks different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it has the same result, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, I would just like to thank both of you for coming on. I'm not going to give any huge predictions. I I do feel very good though about Biden winning the presidency in Pennsylvania, and I feel very good about Pennsylvania, not Pennsylvania, but the Democrats taking the state Senate,
Yep.
keeping control of the House. If that's the case, though, and this is the political analyst in me, they have a good 6 to 8 months to get some, I'm going to say it again, policies through
Yeah.
based on what's being campaigned on, or else things are just going to reverse in 2 years. Because remember, in Congress, once you win, you start running again. It's only 2 years. And here in Pennsylvania, we have a U.S. Senate seat, open U.S. Senate seat up in
Yeah.
2 years. So, the work doesn't stop on election day, it just starts. And I just want to encourage voters also is don't get discouraged. When you vote, change doesn't stop there, it just starts.
Yeah.
You have to keep your elected officials accountable. You have to keep both political parties accountable for what they say. I mean, we're going through COVID-19. We didn't even get to talk about that.
Yeah.
And, the Senate jammed through a Supreme Court justice, but where's the stimulus package to help people who don't have jobs,
Right.
to help people who can't pay their rent, pay their mortgages? See, those are the type of issues that I'm personally interested in, that don't have health care,
Yeah.
that can't get tested. We have football players that get tested every day. The president gets tested every day.
Yeah.
But me or you couldn't get tested unless we had a temperature. And even then, they might tell us to go home and wait it out. So, these are the issues that, to me, as elected officials, we need to focus on, because we're there to serve the people and not serve ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, everyone, please vote. Definitely vote. If you need a ride to the poll, you can call 717-233-1321. You can definitely contact either one of the three of us on Facebook. If you see
I
us
will
on Facebook,
vote.
if you have a question about your ballot, how to fill it out, if you didn't receive your ballot, please contact us so that your vote counts, because this election, it matters. And thank you all for participating. If you missed the show, it will be on YouTube under Unfinished Business, Rogette Harris. And then, of course, you can see it on Facebook as well. But I'd like to thank both of you for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rogette. Good seeing you, Hagir.
Thank you. Good seeing you, Cole.
Good night.